Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Take Your Shot podcast. Of course, as always, I'm your wonderful host, Joshua Gitman. And on today's episode, we continue our discussion on the Blockbuster trade that has sent the NBA world into shell shock. That's all coming up and more on today's episode of the Take Your Shot podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Take Your Shot podcast. This trade, as I'm processing it the next morning, or technically the same day because this trade happened after midnight, was the craziest, most shocking trade in NBA history. And I think me and most people agree on that statement. And let's review the trade details once again. The Los Angeles Lakers are trading Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and their 2029 unprotected first-round pick to the Dallas Mavericks in exchange for Luka Doncic, Maxi Kleber, and Markieff Morris. Luka Doncic to the Lakers. Anthony Davis goes to the Dallas Mavericks in what has been a blockbuster for the ages. And we talked about it last night. I had to do an emergency podcast at 1:30 in the morning. That is how big this trade was. And we will continue our discussion as it has been the next morning. Did get a couple of hours of sleep there. Did get some time to process this trade and sort of clear up my thoughts about it once again. And we will look at it from both perspectives, the Mavericks perspective and the Lakers perspective. How did both sides come to this agreement? And let's start with the Mavericks perspective. Obviously, Luka Doncic, the bigger name going to the Lakers. You think we start with the Lakers, but I think the Mavericks side of things is more interesting because, first of all, as we saw it be reported last night, this wasn't the Lakers saying we're going to give up Anthony Davis to get Luka Doncic. This was Nico Harrison, the general manager of the Dallas Mavericks, shopping Luka Doncic and decided to go with this trade of the Los Angeles Lakers as they get Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and a first-round pick. So once again, this wasn't the Lakers saying, okay, we'll give up AD for Luka. The Mavericks were shopping Luka Doncic, and that is a story in itself. Why would the Mavericks shop Luka Doncic? He is a 25-year-old, a player that comes once every 50 years, a generational type talent, the best international player, maybe behind Nikola Jokic right now. A easily top 3 player in the NBA and a player that can be the face of a franchise for the next 10 to 15 seasons. And the Mavericks decided to give that up. A fact that, an interesting statistic, an interesting fact that I found out this morning that I thought was very intriguing was there has been 5 players currently in the NBA, only 5 players currently in the NBA who have made the All-NBA first team 5 or more times. LeBron James, Giannis, James Harden, and Kevin Durant. And the last one is Luka Doncic. The first 4, you know what they have in common? They are 30 years old and plus. Luka Doncic is only 25, turning 26 in February. That is how good Luka Doncic has been to start his NBA career, and the Mavericks decided to give that up. Now, there's been a lot of reports from Dallas Mavericks reporters that the Mavericks were not happy with Luka Doncic's conditioning. The Mavericks were a little bit scared. He was getting to near 270 pounds, and they were not very comfortable giving Luka Doncic the supermax that he was eligible for this offseason at 5 years, $345 million. The Mavericks were not comfortable in doing that. They wanted to go a different direction and give Luka Doncic up. First of all, my initial takeaway, it wasn't enough for Luka Doncic. It really wasn't. Because number one, if you're going to trade a player like that, why not go explore other options? Why not start a bidding war for Luka Doncic? Yes, Anthony Davis is a star, don't get me wrong, but he's 31, turning 32 soon. And Max Christie's a nice starter. You get a first-round pick. But Luka Doncic, if you had to pick players right now you would start a franchise with, he might be that second or even first pick over Victor Wembanyama and Nikola Jokic and Giannis Antetokounmpo. The list goes on and on and on there. That's how good Luka Doncic has been. Remember, the Mavericks just made the NBA Finals led by that 25-year-old, upsetting the Oklahoma City Thunder in the second round, upsetting the Minnesota Timberwolves in the conference finals after they knocked off the defending NBA champions in the Denver Nuggets. Yes, the NBA Finals was a little bit of a disappointment. The Mavericks had opportunities, especially in Game 2, to make the series a little bit more interesting, but they didn't do it. They lost in 5 games after starting down 3-0, winning a blowout in Game 4, and then going back to Boston and getting blown out themselves as the Celtics went on at home to win that NBA championship. But at the end of the day, this 25-year-old led you to an NBA Finals. The Dallas Mavericks, after that championship in 2011, and maybe a couple of years after that as Dirk was still in all-star form, those years in between, from 2014 to 2019, essentially. Luka got drafted in 2018, but we're not going to count his rookie year. The Mavericks were essentially irrelevant in the landscape of the NBA. The Mavericks were not true contenders. The Mavericks are not a large free agency market. Not a lot of stars are necessarily attracted to Dallas. Yes, Texas doesn't have the state taxes, but Dallas is not really that big free agency market. You get Dirk Nowitzki that many years ago, and just when Dirk's about to retire, you make a great move trading Trae Young to the Atlanta Hawks and finding your next superstar in Luka Doncic. And you could tell by year 1 that Luka was going to be a superstar. And you decide to trade him. If you're going to trade him, at least look at other packages. I mean, I'm just going to throw this out. I don't know if Oklahoma City would do it, but a trade that could have worked is maybe Lou Dort, Jalen Williams, and 4 first-round picks, because remember, Oklahoma City has 1 million first-round picks. So that's a trade that Dallas could have potentially asked for. Maybe OKC would have said yes. Maybe they would have said no, and maybe they wouldn't have liked the pairing of SGA and Luka Doncic. But essentially, the point I'm trying to make is here. Anthony Davis is up there. He's not necessarily that old, but he's not young either. And he is not durable. And the Mavericks have complained and they have been worried about Luka Doncic's durability and conditioning. Well, look at the guy who just got. I understand Anthony Davis has been better as of recently. He missed only 12 games last year, played in 70, and has only missed, I think, 5 or 6 games, if I'm not mistaken, this season, including last night's win against the New York Knicks. But obviously, I think we know why Anthony Davis missed that game now. So we're not really going to count that. So he's really essentially only missed 5 games this season. So Anthony Davis has been as durable as of late, but we know in his career he's not really a durable player. And as you get up there in age, more injuries tend to happen. You sit out for longer. You're going to have to rest some games because you have to maximize yourself for the postseason. So the Mavericks' problem of, okay, let's not have a star that's has durability issues, it's not really solved getting Anthony Davis. So I don't understand why the Mavericks committed to that Los Angeles Lakers trade right away. Why didn't the Mavericks go out there and explore another option? Like I said with the Oklahoma City Thunder, there was probably other teams that are willing to make a blockbuster deal like that. I mean, I'm not even like, I bet you 100 out of 100 people, if the Lakers were offered that package for Luka Doncic, would have said yes. If you're telling me you only had to give up Anthony Davis, who is a star, but he's not a superstar, he's not a number one, and another starter and just another starter and a first for a generational player that probably has 10 to 15 more years in this league and at least 10 more years as a number one and as a cornerstone of a franchise. 100 out of 100 people would say yes to that trade. So if you're the Mavericks, why not explore other options? Why not even look at that Oklahoma City package that I mentioned that maybe they would have thrown out, maybe they wouldn't have? Jalen Williams just got his first night as an All-Star. Lou Dort, you could have even asked for Chet Holmgren maybe in that package, considering that he hasn't been on the court yet. Oklahoma City has had the success that they have had. I'm just throwing names out there for that team and get multiple first round picks, if not more than two, potentially 3 to 4 from the Oklahoma City Thunder. I'm just throwing that out there. So if you're the Mavericks, why commit to that trade right away? It just really perplexed me. And Luka Doncic, no matter what issues they've had, obviously there's been a little bit of tension with the franchise and Luka Doncic. We clearly know that now after the aftermath of that trade last night. But at the end of the day, the kid's 25. The kid for the past few years has averaged nearly a triple-double this season at 28.8 points per game. I think 8.5 rebounds and assists. Last year, it was even better at 33 points per game, if I'm not mistaken. And now you decide to give him up. It's just a shell shock that not a lot of people can really comprehend quite yet. And the Mavericks, right now, you're looking at it. You have Anthony Davis now, 31 on 32. Kyrie Irving, he's already 32 years old. You have to win now if you're Dallas. This was a trade not to win in the future, not to wait a couple of years and make another big move. It is to win right here and right now. And I think if you're the Dallas Mavericks, you have to be looking at finding a third star. Because here's my rule. I think Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis are great. They are stars. They are championship number twos. They are not superstar level players and championship number ones. So my rule is when constructing a championship team, you either A, need a championship level 1, 2, and 3, or B, teams like the 04 Detroit Pistons with Billups, Big Ben Wallace, Rasheed Wallace, to have 3 number 2 guys instead. And Kyrie, Anthony Davis are 2 number 2s. Could the Mavericks potentially look to explore and get a third number 2? And I think it is time right now. The Mavericks should not be done because that Lakers first round pick is very valuable, that 29 Lakers first round pick. And it should be valuable because you just traded away your franchise cornerstone player. But the point is, you have one of the more valuable picks in the NBA. So if you're the Dallas Mavericks, you have to trade it. Why do you need that pick? If you have Anthony Davis, Kyrie Irving, why do you need that pick? You need to go and win because you only have now essentially a 2 to 3, maybe 4-year window to potentially contend with this team. You need to find a third star. And obviously, there are stars on the market right now. And one in particular, Jimmy Butler, who I would think would be a great fit for this Dallas Mavericks team, being that third number 2 on a championship contender team. We've seen Jimmy Butler as a 1, led his team to the finals twice, but didn't get the job done. I think Jimmy Butler would be a great number 2, and a combination of 3 stars of Kyrie Irving, Jimmy Butler, and Anthony Davis, regardless of you may have to give up Klay Thompson, you may have to give up PJ Washington or Daniel Gafford. You have to do it if you're the Dallas Mavericks because it is now or never. Because if you trade Luka Doncic and you have these 2 guys, you're going all in right now, and you don't win a title, and then in the next 10 to 15 years, the Lakers even win 1 title. This could go down as the worst trade in NBA history. The Mavericks need to go and find another star right now. And to me, it was quite surprising that Dallas didn't want a guy like Austin Reeves from the Lakers. Not even necessarily as a guy to incorporate to the roster, but as a trade chip for the trade deadline. I'm just saying, like, the Mavericks could have gotten more, but they got what they got. They got that 29 first-round pick. They have tradable pieces in Klay, PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford. Obviously, Anthony Davis he doesn't want to necessarily be the starting center, as we saw in his interview with Shams Charania a week before this trade with the Lakers. He wanted the Lakers to acquire a starting center, and then they just decided to trade him, which is absolutely hilarious. But the point is, Anthony Davis, he doesn't want to be a starting center. Maybe you trade PJ Washington and you throw in Max Christie with Kyrie Irving and probably that small forwards you get in the trade, like a Jimmy Butler and Anthony Davis and a Daniel Gafford, or you throw in Daniel Gafford and you wait until Derek Lively gets healthy. And until that point when Derek Lively gets healthy, because he's going to be out for most of the regular season, you start Anthony Davis at center. But the point I'm saying, I think the Mavericks need a small forward, a defensive small forward, a guy who can, when you get the ball to, when Kyrie gets the ball to him, he can attack the basket, but he can also be a facilitator, a secondary ball handler to help out Kyrie Irving. And I think that would have been perfect. And I think getting Austin Reeves as a trade chip would have helped for the Dallas Mavericks, but again, they didn't. But they have that first round pick from the Lakers, and why do you need it? You have to go out and you have to make another move if you're the Dallas Mavericks, and you can't just wait and do it, because right now, you look at the standings in the Western Conference, the Dallas Mavericks are sitting at 8th. It's a long climb up. They are 2.5 games into the play-in. They're 2.5 games behind the 6th seed Clippers. They're 4 games behind the 4th seed Denver Nuggets, and they are 6.5 games behind the 2 and 3 seed Rockets and Memphis Grizzlies. So Dallas has an uphill climb, and they have to get out of the play-in. Yes, they made the NBA Finals as a 5 seed, but they are still 3 games out, and that's a tough road to climb, considering the Lakers, who you just traded with, have been playing relatively good under J.J. Redick, and the Clippers have been surprisingly good. James Harden having a resurgence, and Norman Powell playing like an all-star, despite Kawhi Leonard being absent, and now Kawhi Leonard is back into the mix for the Clippers, so the Clippers should only get better as the season progresses. So the Mavericks have to go, because if you keep the same team, you might not have enough firepower to move up in the standings, and it is hard to win as an 8 seed, no matter how good your roster is. Of course, we've seen 8 seeds make crazy runs, make the NBA Finals like the Heat did in 23 or the Knicks in 99, but it's hard to do it. You don't want to play the Thunder in the first round. And even if you somehow miraculously beat the Thunder, which, I mean, it is possible, you have to play the Nuggets or the Lakers in the second round. So this is not an easy path for the Mavericks. The Mavericks have to find a way to get out of the play-in. And part of the problem is when you trade some pieces like Maxi Kleber, Luka Doncic, and you bring in some new guys like Christian Davis, it takes time to adjust to a new system, regardless of what player you get. It's going to take a 2 to 3 game adjustment period, maybe even longer than that, for Anthony Davis and a guy like Max Christie to adjust to the Maverick system. So you're already holding back a couple of games there that you'll probably maximize the roster that they have right now. So the Mavericks, they really need another piece. And their upcoming schedule tonight, they're at the Cleveland Cavaliers. Obviously going to be shorthanded. Anthony Davis is not going to make it to Cleveland in time, and he's not going to get his physical and be ready to go. So Anthony Davis will either make his debut on Tuesday against the Philadelphia 76ers at Wells Fargo Center, or at the Boston Celtics on February 6th. That is the trade deadline day on national television. And I probably wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't until that Thursday date against the Boston Celtics, as obviously things need to progress. It was a 3-way trade. The Utah Jazz also got Jalen Hood-Schifino and 2 second-round picks, one coming from LA and one coming from Dallas. So it takes a lot of time for the physicals to work. It takes a lot of time for things to check out. So he may not be available until that Thursday game against the Boston Celtics. And you're playing a rough schedule there. Cleveland, Philly, Boston. I know Philly isn't that great, but Cleveland, Boston, 2 top teams in the East. Then after that, you go home, you play the Red Hot Rockets, you play the Kings, you play the Warriors. I mean, these are not guaranteed wins for the Dallas Mavericks. So the Mavericks could be behind the hole. They do have a relatively easier schedule to finish out the regular season. But if you put yourself in that much of a hole, it's going to be really hard to come out of that play-in tournament. So this year could already be essentially wasted for the Dallas Mavericks. And that's just another year for Kyrie Irving getting older, another year for Anthony Davis getting older. So if the Dallas Mavericks are committed to this, they got a little bit older. They traded a young franchise corner piece to essentially win now. You have to get somebody else. And it could be Jimmy Butler. It could be another star that shockingly emerges. Maybe they get Cam Johnson. Yes, he's not necessarily a 2, but he's definitely an upgrade. So I don't know what the Mavericks are going to do, but I do know that if they want to contend in a very difficult Western Conference, they're going to have to do something else. But a one positive from this trade is I really do like the acquisition of Max Christie. Obviously, Anthony Davis is going to improve that defense dramatically, and something that the Mavericks have struggled with a lot has been on the defensive side of the ball. That's what killed them in the finals against Boston. That's what killed them in the years of Luka Doncic. So you're definitely upgrading defensively. And Max Christie is also a great defensive player. He is a guard that can defend the other team's best player, and he has had the best year of his career. So I don't know if Max Christie is going to start. I don't know what the Mavericks are going to do with that, but if I were them, I would probably personally start Max Christie. If your lineup's Kyrie, Christie, Klay Thompson, Davis, and Gafford, maybe put Washington to the bench, I might consider starting Max Christie. I don't know what the Mavericks are going to do. Maybe they roll with the lineup of Kyrie, Klay, PJ Washington, AD, and Daniel Gafford. But in my personal opinion, Max Christie should probably be starting. He has had a career year. He just had 15 points last night against the New York Knicks, and the Lakers win in Madison Square Garden. But Max Christie has shot the ball very efficiently from the three-point line this season. He has had a career high in minutes, and he has really made an impact for the Lakers. I think they're 15-8 ever since he got into the starting lineup for D'Angelo Russell this season. So I do like that acquisition, but I think the Mavericks should have gotten more because Luka Doncic is a generational player, and I just still don't understand the logic of trading that cornerstone and telling yourself, okay, now we only have 2 to 3 years to win, and we're giving him to the Lakers, and they're probably going to have a much bigger window because it's okay if Dallas doesn't get it done in this 4-year window with Kyrie. You can always get the next star if you're Dallas because people want to play with Luka Doncic. Luka is that good. Now you give that opportunity to the Lakers. There's been many teams that wish they had a player that is that good, that young as Luka Doncic, because if you fail in one version of a team, you can always have the next version of that team. And like, for example, I'm going to refer to the Heat because I'm a Heat fan. If Jimmy Butler was 25 years old instead of 35, 36, you could have another iteration of that Heat team that made 22 NBA Finals, but they ultimately didn't get the job done. Instead, he's older. You have to trade him. He's frustrated that they're not going all in with an old guy. You don't have a lot of time left with Jimmy Butler, so they have to move on. Dallas is putting themselves essentially in that same position where you only have a certain amount of years, you only have a certain timeline to get this job done. Instead of keeping a corner piece where you could have had multiple iterations of a team. And remember, they just made the finals last year, led by Luka Doncic, led by Luka Magic. And instead, they give him up because they are concerned about his conditioning and they are concerned that he is not worth the 5-year, $345 million Supermax contract. I don't really understand the move. I really don't. And I think that there's a lot of risk in this trade for the Mavericks. And if they don't win an NBA championship, and the Lakers do, I will say it again, this could be, and this could go down as the worst trade in NBA history if the Lakers win a championship. Because now, this is a point where you're in desperation. The Mavericks have to do something else. You have that first-round pick. You have tradable contracts in Klay Thompson, PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford. Make a move to get better and to win now and commit to this historic trade and shocking trade that you made, giving up your franchise corner piece. Now let's move on and let's go to the Lakers' perspective of things, because now that I thought about it, this is really the first time in the career of LeBron James where a team is deciding, okay, let's not build around LeBron James. Let's build around another player, and that player is Luka Doncic, and obviously it makes complete sense. Again, Luka, 25 years old, LeBron James, 40 years old, and maybe the Lakers are contenders this year. I don't know, but the Lakers are going to have an adjustment period as well, but they are much better than the Dallas Mavericks so far this season. JJ Redick absolutely coaching his tail off, so you got to give props there. 28-19, fifth in the Western Conference, only a game behind fourth place Denver, and 3.5 games behind the 2 and the 3 seed Rockets and Grizzlies. So there is plenty of time for them to jump the standings. But again, Luka Doncic is still out with his injury issues, and the Lakers are still not technically a championship contending team because you really don't have the roster around LeBron and Luka Doncic to get a championship done. But those two players are generational players. But the Lakers now shift their focus to Luka Doncic, and they decide now, okay, we're looking at it long term. We're not really a championship contender, but let's get someone that could potentially be even a little bit of an upgrade right now, if not the same for us value-wise, but we get 10 more years of Luka Doncic compared to maybe 2 to 3 more good years of Anthony Davis. So the Lakers making this move, they are viewing this as a long-term thing. They're not viewing this as, okay, let's build around LeBron James. We have the greatest player of all time, arguably in NBA history. We've got to go win it now with LeBron. Yes, they could potentially win it because Luka Doncic is that good. But you're looking at the future because Luka Doncic now is that next star of the Lakers. You go all the way back from Jerry West to Magic Johnson to Kobe Bryant to LeBron James. And now Luka Doncic becomes that next star post LeBron James era, whenever that is. So I think the Lakers making this move are really committing to their future, obviously adding some depth as well with Maxi Kleber, and Markieff Morris doesn't really play, but Maxi Kleber is a decent backup center that is a 3 and D player, so he can be impactful off the bench as well. But the Lakers making this move are showing that they are committing to the future. And the interesting thing is, obviously, JJ Redick and Luka Doncic played together. JJ Redick in the last season of his career played with the Dallas Mavericks, was Luka Doncic's teammate, and now he ultimately becomes his head coach for the foreseeable future. And the Lakers are building around Luka Doncic and JJ Redick as the future of that organization. Luka as their star and JJ Redick as their coach. But for the Los Angeles Lakers, let's talk about the right now. Because to me personally, Luka Doncic and LeBron James. Again, two great historic generational players. Obviously, one's old, one's young. But their play styles, to me personally, are very similar. They are very similar play styles. They both require the ball in their hands. They both are 3-level scorers, and they both like to run the offense and distribute. They have very similar play styles. And Austin Reeves has a similar play style to that as well. And we'll get into Austin Reeves and his future with the Lakers in a second. But LeBron James and Luka Doncic have very similar play styles. So it will be an interesting dynamic to see which one will be the primary point guard. Are they going to split the point guard role? Is Luka Doncic going to be it? Is LeBron James going to work off the ball? Is it going to be the opposite? That is a very interesting dynamic that JJ Redick is going to have to figure out when Luka Doncic gets healthy and gets back into the lineup. But you look at now Austin Reeves, a guy who has been a success and a undrafted gem for the Los Angeles Lakers and Rob Pelinka in his front office, and you look at his role with the Lakers now with Luka and LeBron, he doesn't really fit that team anymore. He doesn't really fit the dynamic of what they're doing. He's very similar to LeBron and Luka. Are you really going to start all three of them? I mean, Austin Reeves, he has a relatively cheap contract. I think he's only making $12 million a year, 12.5 this year, 13.5 next year, and he has a player option for 15.5 the year following for the 2027 offseason, but I'm probably going to bet that Austin Reeves declines that. So 2 years essentially left on Austin Reeves' contract, playing the best basketball of his career on one of the best contracts in the league. Why not trade him right now if you're the Lakers and get a center to replace Anthony Davis? Because what you did by trading Anthony Davis, and I'm not saying it's a bad trade, I would have taken the trade too if I was the Lakers, getting a franchise cornerstone for the next 10 to 15 years in Luka Doncic. But now you gave up your starting center. You gave up essentially your only defense on this team. Like a lineup with Austin Reeves, LeBron James, and Luka Doncic that all don't play defense. That sounds like yuck to me. And can the Lakers really beat teams offensively like that? Maybe, but I think the Lakers need another piece defensively. I think that trading Austin Reeves and potentially a first-round pick to get a center, maybe it's a Miles Turner. I'm just throwing someone out there. Maybe it's getting Jonas Valanciunas. I don't know. I'm just throwing out centers that could potentially be traded, but I think the Lakers may not be done making moves either, just like the Dallas Mavericks. And what was completely shocking to me is, as most of you know, if you're following the Lakers, they had 2 tradable first-round picks before this trade. Their 29 first and their 2031 first. The fact that Rob Pelinka only had to give up his 2029 first-round pick amazes me. So the Lakers still have that last first-round pick in their back pocket, along with Austin Reeves, along with Rui Hachimura as trade chips to get a potential starting center to bolster the defense. Because I love Jackson Hayes, don't get me wrong. He's a great backup center, been doing good stuff with the Lakers, really reviving his career after looking like a bust with the 6th overall pick with the New Orleans Pelicans. But Jackson Hayes is not a starting center in this league. You need another center. You need another big guy. And trading a first-round pick along with a guy like either Austin Reeves or Rui Hachimura can give you that defensive mindset. And I think the Lakers are going to have to do that, or else they're going to struggle defending inside the paint. They're going to struggle getting rebounds. So I don't think the Lakers are done making moves either. And I'm just getting a tweet from Chris Haynes as we are speaking right now that LeBron James intends to stay with the Lakers after the trade deadline. I'm not surprised about that because LeBron James has said in the past that he has wanted to play with Luka Doncic, but the questions were, if Rob Pelinka really thought that the Lakers were not a championship contender, they're getting younger with Luka Doncic, maybe trade LeBron and start fresh with this cornerstone for the next 10 to 15 years. But LeBron James intends to stay. He intends to play with Luka Doncic, and LeBron James has been a fan of Luka Doncic. So it's not like that LeBron's absolutely hating this, but the LeBron and AD partnership was very interesting. Obviously, Anthony Davis requesting a trade to the Lakers in 2019 gets that trade done. The Lakers basically give up all their young pieces in Ingram, Julius Randle, Lonzo Ball, and a few first-round picks. They win a championship year one in the bubble, but after that, it hasn't really been necessarily rainbows and sunshine for the Lakers. First round exit the year after they won the title, didn't make the playoffs in 22, got swept in the conference finals the one time they made a run as a 7 seed by the Denver Nuggets. And then you lose in the first round to the Denver Nuggets this past season. So the Lakers haven't really accomplished a lot after winning that first NBA championship, and they didn't really have a lot to trade. They were going all in with Anthony Davis and LeBron, and you can't really complain because they did get that one championship in the bubble, but it really wasn't a super successful era. Obviously, it was successful. They won an NBA championship, but it was an interesting up and downs of staying healthy, all the coaching changes from Frank Vogel to Darvin Ham, and now J.J. Redick being the third coach of the LeBron and AD era, and that era is now officially over. Luka Doncic comes in at the end of LeBron James's career, and Luka Doncic is essentially taking over this team as the franchise cornerstone. And yes, we love LeBron James. LeBron's greatest player arguably of all time. But again, this team is not built around LeBron anymore. This team is built around Luka Doncic and J.J. Redick as the head coach. So it's a very interesting dynamic. Rob Pelinka is finally discovering that, yes, we love LeBron. Everyone loves LeBron. But we need to move forward and we need to find a piece that we can build this franchise around for the foreseeable future. And the Los Angeles Lakers got that. Obviously, it's a risk for trading for Luka Doncic, according to the Dallas Mavericks, because what if Luka Doncic does have a problem with his conditioning? What if he's not worth the Supermax? Well, first of all, the Supermax problem is now fixed because he's not with his original team for that amount of years. He got traded. Luka Doncic is not eligible to sign a Supermax anymore. I think it's 5 years, 265 now. I think he lost nearly $80 million by getting traded. And obviously there's a lot more state tax in California compared to the no state tax in Texas. So Luka Doncic just losing tens of millions of dollars in this trade. But that problem solved if you're the Lakers. His conditioning, I mean, it's something that you got to keep an eye out on. But I think Luka Doncic getting traded from the Mavericks because of his conditioning, because of his work ethic, I think will motivate him more than ever. And something that this NBA league drives on is motivation. And if Luka Doncic is not motivated after getting traded, after he thought he was going to be the franchise cornerstone, I don't know what would motivate Luka Doncic, because remember, Luka Doncic had no idea this was coming. Anthony Davis had no idea this trade was coming. LeBron James, master of all the front offices, had no idea this NBA trade and this blockbuster was coming. Nobody knew this was happening. So Luka Doncic should have all-time motivation going out there and proving himself as a player that can be a number one on a championship contender team while staying healthy. Obviously, this season is a outlier to that, but relatively for most of his career, Luka Doncic has been somewhat healthy, especially the last 2 years, but the year they didn't make the play-in, he wasn't really that healthy, and But other than that, he has been relatively healthy in his career. And now we move forward with both teams. We have some interesting return games as the Los Angeles Lakers are hosting the Dallas Mavericks on February 25th, which, assuming Luka Doncic should be healthy and he should be good to go after that NBA All-Star break, that will be a matchup that I think could be potentially the most viewed game on national television in NBA history. There's also a return matchup in Dallas on April 9th, the third to last game of the season. Could have a lot of playoff implications if the Mavericks get going here, and that will be on national television as well. But the Lakers decide to go younger. They decide their future is focused around Luka Doncic and JJ Redick, and they make a move where they have leeway now, and they have 10 to 15 years to find the right pieces to build around a generational talent in Luka Doncic. So that's my thoughts the day after. Well, technically the same day that this trade occurred, just a couple of hours of sleep in between. Now that I've had time to process it, hear other perspectives, and putting my own thoughts into it after this trade just shell-shocked the rest of the NBA. This has been the Take Your Shot podcast. This is part 2 of what has been a historic blockbuster NBA trade. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget, the NBA trade deadline special is happening this Thursday at 1 p.m. live on YouTube. It's a 3-hour NBA trade deadline special, 2025 NBA trade deadline special. It will be live on YouTube where we will discuss and continue to react to this blockbuster trade. What will be LeBron James's first reaction of this trade? What will be Anthony Davis and Luka Doncic's reactions to this trade? The coaches, the GMs. We will find out more about how this trade came to fruition as the days continue to go on. So we will talk about that. We will talk about Jimmy Butler. Most likely he is going to get traded by the NBA trade deadline. What will be his package and where will he go to make another team a contender? De'Aaron Fox obviously being shopped as well by the Kings. Will he get traded? The odds say most likely not, but you never know. But the Kings have explored that option, so there's a lot of dynamics in this trade deadline, and this deadline could be potentially the best we have ever seen in NBA history, and it has started out with a bang in the Luka Doncic and Anthony Davis blockbuster swap. So we will see what happens. I will be live with you, giving you my reactions in current time of every trade that happens at the trade deadline. We will see you then on Thursday on YouTube. This has been Josh Gitman with the Take Your Shot podcast. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you then.